So the DEI, as used it, it's been interpreted to mean without any balance, without any legal definition, nothing established in court, nothing established that brings a common reality of it. It different definitions in different dictionaries. It depends who's talking about it. But diversity is used by the woke community, to mean different conditions of immutable factors such as color, age, sex, but then they add in sexual orientation, which is certainly arguably, it could be arguably that it's immutable because it's based on your genes, but it could also be argued that it's a willful choice. And other things like your nationality and all of those things should be represented in all aspects of everything, in the Congress, in the Senate, in the House, in the police, in the government, and everybody. We have to have an equal or an adequate number of blacks, people of color, and so forth. That's just diversity.
This sounds like everything, everywhere, all at once.
Right.
Is that the nature of future living? Is all going to be everything, everywhere, all at once?
Yeah,
you can have it all. Matter of fact, you're required to take it all.
You got it. That's a good definition of diversity. And but the problem has been, and I don't want to pick unusual examples, but there have been. If you're going to hire, let's say, well, the one common thing is pilots. If you're going to say, I have to select pilots so that I have diversity, so in terms of color, race, nationality, gender, and so forth, half the pilots have to be women because they're half of the population. 15% of the American pilots have to be black because that's the percentage of the U.S. population. And that what that does is lessens the recruitment pool, who you're going to select to be a pilot. Because there's a lot of pilots, there's a lot of airplanes flying, 747s and so forth. You need a lot of pilots, and you need air traffic control people. And when you start making your selections on the basis of accomplishing whatever standard of diversity you happen to be implementing, you're not getting the best and most competent available pilots. You're going to be bending to take in, unless you're going to lower the standards to include people from diverse communities. That's bad. I think that's really bad.
And how do you think they're going to respond to a requirement of airline pilots like that? How do you think the airlines would really respond?
Who?
The airlines. How would they respond to those requirements?
Oh, well, that's a whole thing. I did do a show on this, and I can send you the materials. They've been pressured. They are corporations, and they've been pressured to comply with these diversity standards.
How do you think they will respond to the DEI standards? How do you think they would respond?
They've been accommodating.
How?
Not all,
How?
but sorry.
How?
By hiring more people from diverse communities.
How do they do that?
They have lowered their standards.
Well, not necessarily. They just have to actively recruit in those communities where they're not actively recruiting there now. It's the only way, because somebody has to be licensed and qualified to fly those planes. Not everybody is. So those airlines are competing for good pilots all the time. So they have to go through rigorous training. So the only way to accommodate DEI standards, I would think, is they have to actively be going out to women, maybe engineers or pilots, to bring them in to get to those equity standards, I would think.
Yeah,
I just had to share that with you, Ken. I don't know why, but I had to share it.
Oh no, that's okay. You could. That's a possibility, but
it's the only way to handle it. You can't handle it any other way. You have to actively recruit in those communities because you got to get people that'll go through that training, succeed in that training, and people you trust to be in control of a 747. There's not a lot of people like that,
That's right. And if you're going to add the requirement that your record of recruitment includes percentage diversities from various ethnic groups, you're not going for the highest quality.
I doubt if they had those sort of standards for professionals like an airline pilot.
Oh,
They may have for accountants and lawyers and Indian chiefs, but I don't think for highly skilled and intensely trained people like that. Because it's not going to be everybody that does that. And you're not going to have a wide range of diversity. You're not going to have Navajo pilots next to West African pilots. It's just it's just not likely to happen offhand.
well, that it's been pushed into the military
Yeah.
and to corporations and schools
And the police forces.
and police forces
Yeah.
and so forth. And the intent sounds good, like let's all get together. It's when we were growing up, I remember specifically that there was a thing from the UN. There's the globe, and there's a bunch of kids circling the globe, little cartoons, all holding hands, black, blue, green, purple.
Right.
It's a small world, and
Yeah.
we're all the same.
United
Let's
Nations.
let's all get together and love each other and so forth and so on. And
Mm,
I don't believe that it's an intention. It's a concept of utopian peace, but I don't think that there's it sometimes gets realized, like at Olympics or I don't know, some other things, music that's internationally accepted by everybody. But there are vast cultural differences between different societies, even between New York and Los Angeles,
yeah.
even between in China, between Beijing and Shanghai. There are differences and competition. And within Los Angeles, there are differences in different neighborhoods, in different customs, and in the East LA, there's lowriders, and there's a road in Griffith Park where Latino people who own lowriders parade
Mm,
one on Saturday or Sunday,
mm,
and and there's people who parade with their boats in
mhm.
Del Rey. People wear different clothes in different areas. They go to different restaurants. They have different
Yep.
religious services. It's not all a harmonious one thing.
Yeah, it is. Everybody's just parading. What could be
They're
more
all
harmonious
parading.
than that?
Yeah, that's true. So while I was in New York, we went to a parade of worldwide music. So there was
Mm,
representations from various countries. No, it was dance forms from various countries. And it was a very eclectic group. And I actually went to a thing like that once in Germany, I guess in 2014, which was an international fair of, hey, everybody's got an interesting thing. Let's share each other's diversity. And that's true, it's fine. But that entails, in order to have a diversity, you have to allow some form of, I don't want to say distinguishment, the ability to distinguish and to isolate and to say only this, this is the song we're singing tonight. The men are here, the women are there, or the men and women are there, whatever convention you have. And, you see that in various countries. And like I say, in different cities and so forth. So you can't enforce diversity and then outlaw distinction, where somebody says, no, this is the boys' locker room, no girls. That's our belief. This is the boys' locker room, no girls. And the girls don't want to see a guy coming in, taking a shower with them, maybe getting an erection or not. But the point is, the parents of the kids and the kids themselves might say, I don't want that. And they have rights to not have that. Their rights to my reality can supersede the rights of an individual who's asserting he thinks he's a girl or wants to be a girl. Now, anything there, it's always judgment. Like a great example of this, if you go to the Hollywood Bowl, the men's room and there's a women's room, and there's thousands of people there. And the women have to go to the bathroom, and they always take a longer time. So the line into the women's bathroom is like, around the block, and the men's bathroom is open. So
It's
there's just
always like that.
yeah,
Indeed.
there's a tradition at the Hollywood Bowl. Let the women come in and use the men's bathroom, the stalls. So it's okay, fine.
Mm-hmm.
But it can't be enforced. It's got to be agreed upon. It can't be made a law, or unless it can be made a law. But if it's going to be made a law, it should be by the consent of the population. That's where it's going to be enforced. You know, that kind of a thing. So blah blah blah. So I don't think that there should be hard cut rules. I think it's a question of balance.
I
I
think the
wouldn't. I
best way
don't.
to, think the best way to handle that situation would to be build the women's restroom to be twice as large as the men's.
That's one. Yeah. Or
And do women go into the Hollywood Bowl and use the stalls?
yeah, they do. And so, usually their boyfriend goes in with them, or whoever the man goes in with them, and just make sure she's not harassed, and she waits and goes and uses the toilet. Not the urinals. And
Yeah,
it's
right.
just common sense because it's not sex isn't predominant in everybody's life for the whole lifetime.
Well, that's
I
the
think
only
it's
place in the world I've ever heard that to be the case.
well, I was just in a museum in New York where they had I'm sorry, I don't remember the name of the museum. It was in Brooklyn, maybe. And it was no, it was in Queens. And they had a unisex bathroom, which was just a bunch of sinks and a bunch of stalls with toilets. And men and women would use the same bathroom. It's an intersex bathroom. It didn't matter whether you're a
Yeah,
man or woman.
it's a complete stall that's with a
That's right.
closed door.
That's right. It was all
That's the
stall,
best way to do it anyway.
that's right. It was one room with six stalls, and
Six
four
smaller
sinks.
rooms.
Yes, a toilet stall, and three or four sinks. So yes, and in Europe they have things like that too. So there's lots of societies that are more mature and don't get stuck on puritanical concepts. But the conflicts like this have come up about wearing a hijab or wearing religious information. England has tried to handle it one way or another. And but if somebody says, let's as an example, let's say I'm a devout Catholic and I want to wear a cross around my neck. And somebody says, I'm offended by that. You're forcing that, you're pushing that in my face. I don't believe in Christ. You don't have the right to wear that anywhere I am.
I suggest you turn around.
Yeah. So you have to balance that one way or another.
No, you don't. That's an idiotic thing to say. It impinges on their personal space to wear a cross. The person's entirely out of line. Fuck
Okay.
off.
Well,
Period.
okay.
That's
You could
real
say that,
simple. Yeah, I would.
except
I've got Mars conjunct my ascendant. I'm a
well,
little
but
too
what about
aggressive
what
at
about
times.
what about the Schwarzenegger,
A what?
a twisted cross, German Nazi symbol?
Oh, okay. Well, they got a right to wear that too.
Yes, but it can be considered. It is illegal. It can be considered harassment to.
I don't think it's illegal anywhere. It used to be a rather esteemed symbol long before the Nazis perverted it. And
Yes,
I don't think it's ruled against anywhere except maybe in Germany.
yeah, in Germany, let's say. So let me check. Maybe I'm wrong on that, but I'm just trying to come up with an example that says you have to make an accommodation. Oh, like there's a major thing with Islamic covering of the face in
Mm-hmm.
England because it's
Right.
very, very predominant in England because people consider it's difficult for identification when they're getting money out of the bank or whatever. It interferes with their what do they call that? Cameras that
Surveillance.
their surveillance cameras where
Yeah.
they can identify people by their face.
Mm-hmm.
So the government would say, no, you can't wear that burqa thing covering your face all the time. So
Go
let me
ahead and
just
say that. That's not true. The government can say that, but it isn't true. The government can tell you lots of things that are illegal, that they represent as legal that are actually illegal. The government can't tell you that.
think is
At least today, maybe tomorrow.
yeah. So anyhow, so that's diversity. Inclusion means everybody belongs. You can't have anything prevents exclusion. Like again, there has to be now I concur with that there's uh bans on Nazi symbols. And it's a Wikipedia
I can see
article.
that in Germany. That's very appropriate. Sure.
Well,
You
let's
know,
see.
I was saying if a right-wing government came to power in Germany somehow, I think Germany would be subject to invasion by France, Britain, and Poland at least. They wouldn't tolerate it. And I don't blame them. I wouldn't tolerate it.
It's illegal in Germany to post or publish a picture with a Nazi slogan or Germany is a place that prohibits it. Public display in the U.S., law stack exchange. The amount it's amounted to the viewpoint based on discrimination, writing innocent, but also use of the First Amendment, right? Selective penalty for Schwarz stickers in Germany. So there you go. So you're right. It's not why you see Schwarz stickers in America, but not Germany. So it's not illegal here. It's freedom of speech. But people have been fired. You can't say, I don't want any I don't like homosexuals.
Mm-hmm.
If you do that in the workplace, you can get fired for
well,
cause.
I think you're entitled not to like homosexuals, but if you're working with homosexuals and you actually don't like them, then that's going to be a problem for the employer, appropriately enough. I know this actually, I've had experience with this because my brother's got a real problem against homosexuals. And it's cost him his job a couple of times where he's working as a respiratory therapist, other therapists that are gay that he just can't handle dealing with, and sooner or later they get rid of him. That's an odd thing where my brother actually has said that. Now he's retired, fortunately. But yeah, he's got a real problem with them, and it cost him dearly. You know, it cost him 2 jobs.
Is he just doesn't like them, or is it a religious conviction?
He also has to be an ordained Pentecostal minister.
Oh, happens to be. And the Pentecostals have not accepted homosexuality in the clergy?
Yeah, I would think not.
Oh, no. I was just talking to a Pentecostal. No, wait. Not a Pentecostal. What's the Church of England in the U.S.? It's
Anglican.
Yeah. I was talking to an Anglican. Yeah, Episcopalian. I was talking to an Episcopalian clergy, and he said 50 years ago they let women become priests, and the last 5 or 6 years they let homosexuals be priests. So you're right. It's not Pentecostal. It's
Episcopalian.
Episcopalian. Oh, those are the factions that lose it.
English Catholicism.
Yeah, even Catholicism. So anyhow, but there's going to be friction there, I think, at certain points. There's certain points of people who are what we call, Grace and I call, internationalists or open society attitudes. We like to have people from different organizations, or let's have a party or a restaurant or meeting with people from all groups.
You have a pretty good diverse group to come to your parties.
Yeah, sure.
Well, they're diverse in one way, but come on, we're all leftists. Maybe there's a couple of people who voted for Donald Trump in there because he thought that he would shake things up in a good way. But no, I remember going to a party at King Riley's place after Donald Trump had actually won in 2016, and it seems like they have seats down both rows on your right and on your left. And I'm looking down this, and I've never seen a group of more depressed people in my life. And I wish that I'd stepped in there and started acting like a clown and going, "Come on, people! We survived Nixon. We survived Reagan. We'll survive Donald Trump." It's a great opportunity for much comedy material that's going to be coming out of the White House. Come on, lighten up. It's not the end of the world. All right, he won. It'll show how bad the Republicans really are. There's an opportunity in every disaster. So, you got reasons to smile. You just don't know it. I remember that so clearly. It's in my mind. I'm looking down these rows on the right and rows on the left. I've never seen more depressed people than that. Donald Trump is going to become president of the United States of America. How did that happen?
Yeah.
Do you think he's going to be president again here in a few weeks?
I don't know. I mean, according to what I observed from that meeting, he did a terrible job. He seems to be losing his, every time I've seen him, he's been sort of cheerful or malicious and
You're kind of cheerful in the
humorous.
malicious way.
Yeah. Sort of like, well, how you doing? You look much better than last time I saw you.
Yeah,
You
right.
gain weight, you
Yeah,
know.
right. Left-handed comments
Right.
at best.
Reverse, like there was a movie I saw that where I was introduced to this case of a negative compliment, which was something like, "You're not as stupid as you look."
Yeah, right.
That kind of thing.
They're good responses, neither are you.
Right. Yeah.
Although, actually, or it might be better, I don't think it's true for you because what a stupid remark you just made.
Right. So
You can't be quick enough on the repartee on such things.
oh, that's right. The
Such
times in your
insults cut,
the times in
they
your
land
life,
too quickly.
yeah. The times in your life when you're able to, it's is rare, I think,
Yeah.
that you
When
have
you're
that
a
opportunity.
teenager and you're in your 20s, you're a little quicker with the comebacks, maybe,
Uh,
than rather in your 70s.
I think no, I think it's the other way around. I think it's more
Better
likely
with
after,
age,
yeah, with age you've gone
better
through it so many
repartee.
times and
Yeah,
better
well,
repertoire. Yeah.
good point.
Hey, listen, there's something I want to play here. I
Okay.
don't care who shows up because you're the guy who could be an expert on this. So let me pull this up and play it. And let me just start this. This is going viral, and today is September 11th, 2024. And right, we're starting the meeting with Ken Aaron in New York, excuse me, in Los Angeles, and Steve Kaiser in Los Angeles. And I'm going to start this by sharing a video about something. And I'm going to pull up the video first, and then I'll share it. So just give me a moment to get the video.
Major new ruling. The U.S. Supreme Court has just delivered a serious blow to the administrative state by eliminating the very framework which allowed federal agencies to basically interpret the law however they wish. Specifically, the U.S. Supreme Court struck down something that's known as the Doctrine of Chevron Deference. It sounds a little bit technical, but in a practical sense, this one Supreme Court ruling, it eliminated the very core of the power that federal agencies claim to possess. But that power is no more. Moving forward, unelected bureaucrats over in Washington will no longer have the authority to make rules that then have the force of law. Let me explain specifically the background of this particular case, as well as what it means for common Americans like you and I moving forward. To start with, let's rewind the clock back to the year 1984. That was when a case called Chevron versus the National Resources Defense Council made its way up to the U.S. Supreme Court. Without getting too deep into the weeds of that particular case, the end result was that the 1984 Supreme Court, they ruled in favor of Chevron, and in so doing, they created a new administrative framework. If there was an ambiguity in a given statute, well, the courts, they would defer the interpretation of that statute to the relevant federal agency. In other words, quote, a government agency must conform to any clear legislation statements when interpreting and applying a law. But courts will give the agency deference in ambiguous situations as long as the agency's interpretation is reasonable. In plain English, it means that an agency has to conform to the letter of the law, but if there was even a slight ambiguity in the law, well, they can interpret that ambiguity as they may, and the courts will defer to their expertise. The thinking behind this ruling was basically that experts should be the ones responsible for setting the rules and the regulations that pertain to their industry, since, of course, they know better than an elected official or a judge. This established something known as the principle of Chevron deference, and it gave federal agencies a massive amount of power. Starting in 1984, agencies were now free to make rules which effectively, in relation to us common citizens, carry the same power as laws. And you better believe that federal agencies have used this power countless times over the past 40 years. In fact, if you dig through the reams of case files, you'll find that the Chevron deference precedent was the most referenced Supreme Court ruling in the realm of administrative law. Since the year 1984, it's been referenced around 18,000 different times in other cases. And these have real implications for real people's lives, because it's exactly this principle which has allowed federal agencies to interpret laws and go well beyond the literal text of what the statutes actually say. For instance, as just one example of many, during the time of the COVID pandemic, OSHA, which is the Occupational Safety and Health Administration, they interpreted the Occupational Safety and Health Act of 1970 as giving them the authority to impose vaccine and mask mandates on American companies. Nowhere in the law, nowhere in the text of the law, did it say that they can do this. Instead, if you actually look through the law, it said that OSHA can issue an emergency regulation if it was, quote, necessary to protect employees from a, quote, grave danger. Now, was the vaccine necessary? Were the masks necessary? Was COVID a grave danger to people in their 20s and 30s? Well, according to OSHA, the answer to all three of those questions was yes. And because of Chevron deference, their opinion carried the force of law. Likewise, it was the principle of Chevron deference which allowed the ATF, which is the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms, to expand the definition of what it means to be a quote-unquote firearms dealer. You see, according to the new definition, if you sell a single gun to your uncle or your aunt or a friend, you might be classified as a gun dealer subject to arrest without a proper license. Likewise, Chevron deference is the reason why the EPA was able to decide that a puddle somewhere in your property was technically a protected wetland subject to jurisdiction under the Waters of the U.S. Act. Basically, for the past 40 years, the laws that come out of Congress, they are what they are and they say what they say, but Chevron deference has allowed the bureaucrats over in Washington to interpret the definitions and the meanings of the words in the actual laws. And, well, for the past 40 years, if you challenged any of those interpretations in court, you would 99 times out of 100 lose, because the courts gave the discretion to the federal agency. However, that all changed with this latest ruling right here. You see, what happened was that back in the year 2020, a federal agency called the National Marine Fisheries Service passed a rule which forced fishing companies to pay for the cost of federal monitors which were assigned to their boats. Meaning that if you ran a small fishing boat, let's say you were fishing for herring somewhere on the East Coast, well, the government was not only going to assign an agent to come onto your boat and watch you as your work, but you also had to foot the bill. And the cost of these government monitors was not cheap. It was upwards of $700 per day, which of course might be fine for a huge corporate fishery, but for small owner-operated businesses, well, it was enough to completely wipe out their profits. Now, the government agency behind this mandate, they claimed that the Fishery Conservation and Management Act of 1976 gave them the authority to charge companies these fees. But of course, as you likely guessed, it was not in the letter of the law. There's nothing in that law that said that they can charge this fee. Rather, it was this agency's interpretation of that law. And so, two companies filed two separate lawsuits against the government saying that these fees were illegal. These two companies, just for your reference, they were Loper Bright Enterprises and Relentless Incorporated, both of which are herring fisheries located on the East Coast. Eventually, these two cases were consolidated, and after about 4 years of legal back and forth, the U.S. Supreme Court took them both up, heard both sides of the argument, and they eventually ruled in both cases against the government. Logical lines, with Justices John Roberts, Brett Kavanaugh, Amy Coney Barrett, Neil Gorsuch, Clarence Thomas, and Sam Alito all voting to overturn the Chevron Doctrine. As a part of the majority opinion, which just for your reference was written by Chief Justice John Roberts, here is what it said, quote, Chevron's presumption is misguided because agencies have no special competence in resolving statutory ambiguities. Courts do. The framers anticipated that courts would often confront statutory ambiguities and expected that courts would resolve them by exercising independent legal judgment. Chevron gravely erred in concluding that the inquiry is fundamentally different just because an administrative interpretation is in play. Then, in order to assuage the concerns from those who support the Chevron doctrine, Justice John Roberts, he wanted to indicate that this new ruling, it will not suddenly invalidate tens of thousands of past cases, but instead, it should be applied moving forward. Quote, by overruling Chevron, though, the court does not call into question prior cases that relied on the Chevron framework. The holdings of those cases, that specific agency actions are lawful, are still subject to statutory stare decisis despite the court's change in interpretive methodology. Mere reliance on Chevron cannot constitute a special justification for overruling such a holding. Meaning, in plain English, that this ruling will not suddenly turn everything upside down by rendering 18,000 plus cases invalid, but rather that moving forward, there will no longer be this deference to the agencies in terms of legal interpretation. It'll be the courts themselves that'll once again have the full authority to interpret the law, with judges being the arbiters of deciding what a given law actually means. And in addressing the criticism that judges are not subject matter experts, while the bureaucrats over in Washington are, Justice John Roberts wrote the following, quote, Congress expects courts to handle technical statutory questions. Many statutory cases call upon courts to interpret the mass of technical detail that is the ordinary dyad of law, and courts did so without issue in agency cases before Chevron. Courts, after all, do not decide such questions blindly. The parties and the friends of the court in such cases are steeped in the subject matter, and reviewing courts have the benefit of their perspectives. In an agency case in particular, the court will go about its task with the agency's body of experience and informed judgment, among other information, at its disposal. Meaning in a practical sense that the idea that judges are going to be flying blind is not true, given the fact that they can call upon the expertise of many different parties. In a separately concurring opinion, Justice Neil Gorsuch, he added the following, quote, Today, the court places a tombstone on Chevron no one can miss. In doing so, the court returns judges to interpretive rules that have guided federal courts since the nation's founding. And so there you have it. The conservative majority on the court, they put the decision-making power, once again, regarding laws, back into the hands of the elected lawmakers. And if there's any ambiguity, that power now goes to the judges to decide what the law actually means. And indeed, shortly after this U.S. Supreme Court ruling was handed down, well, the lawsuits began to pour in. And some of them are beginning to prove successful. For instance, back in the year 2020, the Department of Health and Human Services, they interpreted the phrase on the basis of sex to actually mean on the basis of gender identity. And therefore, they expanded the protections of the Affordable Care Act to transgenders, meaning that doctors and insurers, they were at risk of having their federal funding pulled if they refused to comply with the demands of transgender Americans, despite the law not mentioning anything about gender identity or transgenderism. However, following this new U.S. Supreme Court ruling, well, a federal judge over in Mississippi, he put a stop to this new rule because the doctrine of Chevron deference is no longer in place. Well, the Department of Health and Human Services can no longer make such interpretations. And this type of thing is happening at many other federal agencies as well. For instance, you have the Department of Education, which is now being challenged by those who are saying that they went well beyond their authority when they plan to forgive a massive amount of student loan debt. You have the EPA, which is getting challenged by those who are saying that their new rule forcing companies to capture 90% of their carbon dioxide emissions is well beyond the authority that they were given. You have OSHA getting challenged on their new climate-based rules, and so on and so forth. This is just the new reality. And again, this is all happening because the underlying legal framework that allowed these agencies to basically interpret the law however they want, it's been scrapped. Although, as to whether this is really a good thing or not, well, I'd love to know your thoughts, because there really are two ways to look at it. On the one hand, it might be true that some decisions regarding interpretation of laws is very, very technical. One example that was given during this particular U.S. Supreme Court case was trying to figure out whether an alpha amino acid polymer qualifies as a quote-unquote protein under the Public Health Services Act. Thousands of decisions like these require very specialized expertise, which might bog down the court. And so that's the argument for Chevron deference. However, that specialized expertise can always be brought in as subject matter experts to the court, because on the other hand, moving forward, the decisions surrounding the interpretation of these laws will be made by people who have no vested interest, because the regulators at these federal agencies, who have been for the past 40 years charged with interpreting the statutes that limit or expand their own authority, is like having the fox guard the henhouse. Amazingly, very often, those bureaucrats expand their own authority. Who would have thought? On the flip side, however, federal judges, they are appointed for life, and they have to recuse themselves from cases in which they have either personal involvement or some kind of an interest at stake. Now, of course, no system is perfect, but just looking on the face of it, it would seem that the new setup would lend to less government overreach and less potential for corruption, even if it makes the whole process slower. But I'd love to know what you think. Is eliminating the doctrine of Chevron deference a net positive, or is it a net negative? Please leave your thoughts in the comments section below. I will be reading them later tonight, as well as throughout the rest of the week. And also, as you're making your way down there to that comment section, consider smashing those like and subscribe buttons on your way so that this content can reach ever more people, so that they can know what's happening at the federal level. Because weirdly enough, with the abortion Supreme Court ruling, there was a media firestorm, even though, of course, that is important. But with this ruling, it pretty much fizzled out and was covered, I think, for a few hours. And that was it. That was it. It just went away. And I think very few people know about this extremely monumental decision that came out of the U.S. Supreme Court. So by smashing those like and subscribe buttons, you can make sure that more people know about that. And then second to last, all my documents will be found in the description box below if you want to dig through the details. And then lastly, if you'd like to get access to all these episodes a few days ahead of time, we publish them over on Epic TV 2, 3, or sometimes even 4 days before we do on YouTube, just depending on our editing schedule. I have my lovely editor here standing behind the camera. She's giving me a look saying, oh, don't tell people about the inner workings of our editing schedule. Well, that's just how it is, depending on whether there's a weekend, holiday, if there's a lot of technical 3D animation that goes into the work. Well, it just takes a few extra days. So if you want to get access to those episodes a few days ahead of time, you can find it over on Epic TV. We also have a plethora of great backlog content that you won't even find on YouTube because it was not published on YouTube because we weren't able to. So again, the link is right there at the top of the description box below. Hope you check it out. And then until next time, I'm your host, Roman from the Epic Times. Stay informed, and most importantly, stay free.
Ken, what do you think? Net negative or net positive?
The ruling?
The new lay of the land.
Oh, I think it's positive.
Why?
Because the factor of an agency having the ability to define itself into expansion is dangerous, so that they can say, like, whatever the agency is, let's say it's an educational agency, they could say, we have the right to determine what books are come in the library, and I need people, I need to hire people, I need more of a budget so I can check the libraries in every school, and I need to check what the kids are reading at home, or
and that's a net positive. And that's a net positive.
No. That's that's a net negative, that the agency has the right to continually expand the implementation of their authority. That
Well,
it's just left out to them in the agencies. That's what he was explaining there.
well, it's just on individual decisions about how to interpret uh, a particular ruling or a particular situation. It's not about the doctrine of it, or having to do with expanding their powers. It's a matter about if something is ambiguous on a given regulation, who
Yeah.
gets to resolve that ambiguity? And for 30 or 40 years, it's been these federal agencies doing that. And I understand that the individuals that have been subject to these rulings and this summary decision on the given part of the agencies, I can understand why they've been upset, and they've got a good reason for that. But now it's saying they determine it, and you have to throw it back to the courts. So this has got to expand the demand for court time, and that's already massively solicited.
Right.
I mean, they should have some answer. There should be some, if the agency makes a ruling, there should be maybe a function where you can get that addressed by a court. But I see that this could really throw everything back for a re-ruling on something, on how to enforce the statute.
Well, what about the section where he said, according to Roberts, this has no, I mean, to turn it into lay terms, this has no effect on the implementation of previously decided standards. So, like, if the standard is by 2030, all automobiles have to have all new automobiles have to have an average of 30 miles per gallon, and that's the ruling, and that's it. Now, that's going to stay in force.
There's no ambiguity there, Ken.
No.
You have to have that element of ambiguity to apply to.
No. The limits of 30 miles per gallon comes from the OSHA or something, from an agency.
It comes from the federal government. They pass a law to that effect.
It comes from an agency.
It comes from the federal government. The government, an agency can't tell you have to have at least 30 miles a gallon. It has to be a law.
No, I don't think so.
Why do you think that?
Because
if you're commanding people to do something, it's only a law that commands them to do that. It's where you have ambiguity that you have these sort of standards to look at to see whether it goes one way or the other.
Okay.
It's where you have ambiguity. It's the interpretation. I understand a lot of people have had interpretations that they don't think was fair, and it was a summary decision by the agency.
Okay, excuse me. Let me read this to you. Wednesday, Friday, June 7th, 2024. New standards will save Americans hundreds of dollars at the pump over the lifetime of their vehicles. The U.S. Department of Transportation National Highway Traffic Safety Administration today set new vehicle economy standards. It was this department. It's not coming from the legislature. It's the U.S. Department of Transportation National Highway Traffic Safety Administration. Okay.
So they're setting standards. What does that mean?
That's an agency.
Right. What does it mean that they're setting standards?
That's, if you don't, it'll affect, they're setting a standard that it's got to be a certain miles per gallon.
And if it's not?
Oh, what are the consequences of it?
Well,
I'd have to go see. I'd have to go into that. It would have to have
consequences to be a ruling like that. Otherwise, it's just a guide, or it's just a benchmark. And they're saying, it should be this, if it has force behind it, for one thing, it has to be a law that comes from a legislature. It's no ambiguity there that they're deciding.
Okay, so 1 second. Let's say the law says, I can stop and do that now. What are the consequences of violating mileage MPG standards? But let's say the law says, and if you violate the standards from this agency, you won't get federal funding, or you won't, and so forth. Well, or if you do follow it, you'll get a tax rebate.
Okay, so they're going to go by and check out their fleet for how much their mileage has been. To deny them that, or to bring onerous things on them.
No. Here's a consequence of something like that happened. Okay, this happened. Volkswagen filed false reports about its carbon emissions. Okay, and they were
I,
sued, and they had to pay millions or hundreds of millions of dollars in penalties because they just lied. All right, and
yeah,
when they tested the cars, they fudged the testing. So, but the standard of how much CO2 they're going to release is not determined by Congress. It was determined by an agency. That's the Chevron doctrine. Okay. The agency set the standards. The consequences may be set in law, but the standards are implemented. And as he gave an example, the fishery thing said, we decided you have to pay $700 to determine what you're doing with the fishing. And that's a very hard course example. The agency decided, not the legislature. So the agencies and various institutions have set rules and regulations, about like what kind of food can be served in the cafeteria and so forth and so on. And I agree with you that it could be any good rule could be used abusively and or not abused or not used, avoided abusively. So it can be used good or bad. But yeah, it makes for more, it's going to slow down things. But as he said, it doesn't change any existing situations. That's the intent. Now, so I don't know. What do you think? You think it's bad? You should just leave it alone?
no, I don't think that's the correct interpretation. And I mean no offense.
Yeah,
Laws are made by legislatures. Laws have to be created by people that have the power to do that.
right.
Now, what they're talking about in the Chevron doctrine is that there's ambiguity in the enforcement of given regulation that's been created by a body, by a legislative body. And what they've done is they've just carte blanche says whatever agency is dealing with that, they determine what is and what is not.
Right.
And a lot of individuals who have come up against an agency wanting to do something different have just, the agency doesn't have to listen to them or deal with them in any respect. They can just blow them off. And that's not fair to the individual. So what they're saying now is if there's a decision about ambiguity in a regulation, it has to go back to the court. Only the court can decide that. It's not fair to let these agencies interpret a rule and enforce it and determine what the standards are. That's not fair allocation of power to those agencies in the face of the people that have to deal with them. But I find it really cumbersome that you can send every decision back to the court now. I mean, if it has any ambiguity in interpretation.
Yeah. Well, until the court decides. So let's say the court decides, let's just take an oddball thing. And the court decides by 2030, the cars have to achieve 28 miles per gallon on the average or better, not 30. And they have arguments back and forth. And they say 25, 36, 40, 50, 90, 80. And they say 28 miles per hour, 28 miles per gallon. And that's it. And that's the judge. So now they can go appeal it and take it up to the Supreme Court and so forth and so on. You're right. But
where's the ambiguity, Ken?
The ambiguity is in what is the definition of, as an accountant, I'm sure, there's a lot of laws which say reasonable or acceptable or appropriate when they refer to something.
Right.
Like the case,
none of that's present here.
Yeah, sure it is.
No, it isn't. He says 28 miles per gallon. There's no ambiguity.
That number was set not by the court. It was set by the agency.
It has to be set by the legislature passing the law.
No, it isn't.
Yes, it is.
I just gave you an example. I just read it to you.
You just gave me an example you pulled out of the air.
No. I read it to you. It's this transportation agency which picked the standard miles per gallon. They said it.
Well, where does it say that they said it?
You want me to read it to you again?
No, I want you to read that specific thing, that they set the 28 mile per hour standard.
Yeah.
They're not empowered to do that.
Okay, that's
They're
what
empowered to rule on ambiguities, and that's been changed by the Roberts ruling, the Chevron ruling.
let me see if I can find it again. 1 second. Who sets the required milestone? Here we go. Okay. U.S. Department of Transportation finalizes new fuel economy standards for model years. Okay? That's the title of the article. It's June 7th, 2024. New standards over the lifetime of their vehicles. The U.S. Department of Transportation National Highway Traffic Safety Administration today issued new vehicle fuel economy standards. Okay? They are issuing the standards, not the legislature.
Okay, where's their ambiguity in a regulation?
I don't know.
Maybe they are legally empowered by legislation to set the standards. It's a matter of ambiguity that the Chevron ruling is about. If there's ambiguity, they don't let the agency determine the absolute answer. It has to be determined by the court. So if there's ambiguity in a situation, it has to go back to the court. There's no ambiguity in what you said. If somebody wants to fight that, they're just fighting the standards and whatever legal ground they have on that. There's no ambiguity to decide. See what I'm saying?
No, because you're saying the law might have dictated who's ever the president of this agency can set whatever he wants for the fuel economy, and that's not ambiguous.
No, Ken. The standard is 28 miles to the gallon. That was
no. I just made that up. That's not the standard. I just gave that as an example. I don't know what it is, but it said in this article that an agency sets the standard.
Right.
The agency sets the standard.
Right.
You're saying that's not ambiguous.
No, I'm not saying. I'm saying that you're right. It isn't ambiguous.
It's not ambiguous.
I am saying that. It is not ambiguous.
Okay, hold on a minute. Let's check that.
And the Chevron ruling is settling ambiguities. If this agency is empowered to set the standards, then they've been empowered by legislation. That's where all the laws come from.
Okay, so let's see what the legal definition of ambiguity.
We need some of your friends from back east to come in here, Ken,
Yeah.
to settle these arguments between us. You know, we need their opinions.
Oh, I don't know that it gets us anywhere with that. They just go like, well, that's what a Republican would say. That's all they can do. All right, legal ambiguity refers to the situation where the meaning of the application, where the meaning or implication of the law is unclear or open to interpretation. Okay, so that's your definition. That's what you're using. Well, so you're saying the law may have...
It's not mine. It's the only definition there is. That is the definition.
Okay, right. It's an agreement, what you said. Meaning of in law, legal documents. Okay. A situation where the meaning of an application of a law is unclear or open to interpretation. Okay, great.
Right.
So then the question is the law on gas required mileage, does that declare that it is to be set unambiguously by whatever that agency comes up with? If that's not, that would not be ambiguous if that's the law.
Correct. And they set the standards and there's no ambiguity.
Okay, so we'd have to see what the law is on miles per gallon. What is the law on the federal law on setting MPG standards for vehicles? Okie doke. Again, it's coming up with the agency. Oh, here it is. I think you're right. Here it is. The National Highway, the NHTSA, whatever that is required by federal law to set fuel economy standards at the maximum feasible level for both passenger cars and light trucks for every model year.
See
So
what I
it
mean?
says there it is,
Legislation has to be a law.
that
Legislation.
it says federal law to set the fuel economy standards.
Right.
So
They're empowered to do that by the law.
that's
By
not ambiguous. That's not
Right.
ambiguous.
Right.
The final set includes standards that are consistent with now the final rule sets increased standards that are consistent with Congress's direction to conserve fuel and promote American energy independence and so forth. So, well, we'll see, and if that stands.
I'd like to read something about.
Anyhow, by the way, just for the purpose of the listeners, the required new cars to average 38 miles per gallon by 2031.
Right, new cars.
New cars, 38, up from 29 last year.
Right. So that's why you have to have plug-in hybrids, because you're going to have an additional electric engine that's being powered up by your car in order to get that high gas mileage, because gas mileage is not going to get that high. You're going to have an electric auxiliary.
Oh, well, no, it depends on it. You can have a lightweight car.
Oh,
like
okay.
A small.
All right, I'll give you that. You can get 100 miles out of a really small motorcycle.
Yeah.
I agree. All right. But that's not going to be the most of the case. Let me read this about Kagan, the Justice Elena Kagan of the Supreme Court. She predicted that Friday ruling will cause a massive shock to the legal system. Yeah. When the Supreme Court first issued a decision in Chevron case more than 40 years ago, the decision was not necessarily regarded as particularly consequential one. But in the years since then, it became one of the most important rulings on federal administrative law, cited by federal courts more than 18,000 times. So a lot of people that have got these summary judgments by agencies have found that too objectionable, and 18,000 times at least they've opposed it. So what the Supreme Court's doing now is they're saying, yeah, okay, you're right. It's not fair to let the agency make that determination on their own, and then everybody else has to agree to it like they're a king. You do have regress. If it's inappropriate, you can take it back to the court. And that's what Kagan's talking about. We're going to have to rehear so many cases, it seems, on petty particulars about legislation. It's going to be a nightmare. That's what I think.
Well, okay. What about all the cases of, sexual abuse, sexual harassment? What about all of those stupid cases? What did he do? He wouldn't. He kept looking at me with his eyes wide open, and he was whistling and licking his tongue at the time.
No, I think it's a little bit more severe than that.
No. That's a sexual act. You're talking about somebody patting you on the ass or something. Sexual harassment is non-physical.
Oh, yeah. You'll get sued for patting somebody in the ass casually, appropriately enough.
Depends. But you can sue somebody for things they said that you took as a threat, or as they upset you, they interpolated you. People are doing it. People go in it for money, all the time on that kind of crap. Oh, that's what happened with this fun. This guy, he's a very sleazy guy. I keep forgetting his name. He was in, I'll have to look up his name. Kevin something.
What did he do?
He got sued because some gay boyfriend of his said he was abusive. And he got fired from all his acting jobs.
Oh,
and he went broke.
Bacon.
No, not Kevin Bacon. No.
Kevin Spacey.
Spacey.
Right.
That's right.
American Pie. Yeah.
He got fired, and he said, I lost 3 houses. I couldn't keep up the mortgage and so forth because he was rich. And the case was thrown, the case was dismissed or he was found innocent.
Did he use up his money in legal fees? Is that what he's complaining about?
Probably.
I mean, there's no judgment against him, so he didn't lose any money there.
Right.
And what basis? Well, maybe he lost some pictures. They didn't want that, but I don't think he has much basis to sue on that.
Oh, I think so. I could countersuit for defamation.
Well, it depends on what the actual deal was that he no longer has. where did he get fired from? Generally, stars like that make deals to work on a given picture, you know. So they lose a picture deal. Who's to say what that's from?
I never have trouble getting paid in Hollywood because I never did anything there. So
There you go.
I wouldn't answer them. But I'm just
That's
saying
a-
that
that's a way to play
there's
it
an
safe.
example. There's a stellar example of, and another one is Cuomo. Cuomo was compelled to resign, and he resigned, and the case
Mhm.
fell apart.
Mhm.
He didn't harass anybody, and he was hugging people.
Now we're
So
talking about Mario Cuomo or Andy Cuomo,
the
the father
governor,
or the son.
the governor of New York.
They were both governor.
Well, not the father, the son.
No, Mario Cuomo was governor of New York at one point. I'm pretty
Yeah,
sure. Maybe I'm wrong.
Mario's the father,
Yeah,
and the son
I
is.
think it's the son, Andy, that got nailed.
I don't think it's Andy Cuomo.
Well, Ken, we're forgetting we don't need to think. We've got Google. We just ask Google and it grants knowledge. I only have to put in Cuomo and it'll give me the life event of every Cuomo that's ever lived.
Mario Cuomo. Mario
Andrew,
Cuomo.
Andrew Cuomo, governor of New York,
Andrew
born in
Cuomo, governor.
57. Right.
Andrew,
Okay, now
right.
hang on. It's got to have Mario in here. I just put in Cuomo. It's got to be here somewhere.
Yeah. That's the father.
Okay, so mulling political comeback. Cuomo faces COVID scrutiny. I guess he did something wrong with COVID too. Governor Andrew Cuomo resigns after decades-long political career in 21. The real reason Andrew Cuomo and Kerry Kennedy divorced. Well, I don't want to go into that. Come on, what about Mario? I guess I have to put Mario in here too.
But anyhow, my argument with my statement is fallacious because whether or not the court's wasting time on frivolous sexual harassment suits doesn't excuse the chaos that could be caused by blocking the Chevron rule. So it's sort of like saying, well, don't worry about the Jews killing the Palestinians. Look what's happening in Sudan. Forget the Jews. Look at Sudan. One doesn't write out the other. So the courts are the courts. And what I think maybe the legislature could come up with a reasonable thing in the middle that says there should be a separate commission that evaluates and monitors what agencies are doing with wherever they have discretion on implementing different laws, and that the government can sue the agencies, and the
government
Department of
itself.
Justice. Well, the Department of there should be a department. There's got to be an oversight. There is an oversight thing agency.
It's called the presidency.
No, not yet. There's
it's
that.
his crew.
There's
They're
another
his
one.
crew.
There's a GAO, an audit association or something.
GAO, government accounting office, I think.
Right.
GAO.
And they can overlook.
Well, they can overlook some money. Where'd the money go? That kind of thing.
Yeah.
Oh, by the way, Ken, Mario Cuomo was governor of New York too, so I was right. They were both governors.
Right. They were both governors. I know. He got the job from his daddy. I know.
You know that.
There's
You
so
know
much.
New York. How long were you back in New York? 2 months?
Three and a half.
Oh, you have a good time? See some family and friends?
Yeah, I like it. We went home.
Yeah,
We're from
right.
New York. So we just lived there. It's not like we went there to go to a big gala or anything. We just, bummed around, went to different things.
Yeah, I know. It's when I go back to Indiana, I have some of that experience. But that's back home.
Yeah. And let me see. Let's see. Is there anything else? If somebody else doesn't join us, that's fine. We'll end sooner. But I want to take a look and discuss. We agree on this thing with the Chevron thing. There is a situation, and their solution is too binary. It's like yes or no. Chevron, agencies can make set standards, or they can't. Now they can't. And then before they could. So now that's just going there instead of saying the legislature should make a decision about solving this because it's going to overload the courts. It costs a lot of money too for the government. So let me take a look at what this other thing I had going here.
Let's have a good debate.
See, have fun.
Thank you.
Now that was the first thing that was unusual. My friend, one of the people that was watching this he says, you want to take bets on whether or not they're going to shake hands? And he says, I think she's going to force him to shake hands. She's going to step right up. And
Who said that?
somebody was sitting with me watching it.
Really? Well, they nailed that, didn't they?
Yeah, there he goes. It's back.
I thought
have
that,
see,
have fun.
if I were her, I would have walked to mid-stage and stood there and waited for what he would do. And when he didn't come to her, then she would walk over to his podium and offer to shake his hand.
Yeah.
That would have been my way of doing it. The way she did it, a little clumsy, but fine.
Okay, so now this is supposed to be like maybe 5 or thing. It's only 3 minutes, so let's see what comes up and then we can talk about it.
You both. It's wonderful to have you. It's an honor to have you both here tonight.
Donald Trump left us the worst unemployment since the Great Depression. Donald Trump left us the worst public health epidemic in a century. You will see during the course of his rallies, he talks about fictional characters like Hannibal Lecter. He will talk about windmills cause cancer. And what you will also notice is that people start leaving his rallies early out of exhaustion and boredom.
People don't go to her rallies. There's no reason to go. And the people that do go, she's bussing them in and paying them to be there. She has a plan to confiscate everybody's gun.
President Trump,
she has a plan.
Tim Walz and I are both gun owners. We're not taking anybody's guns away. So stop with the continuous lying about this stuff.
I don't know. I mean, all I can say is I read where she was not black, that she put out. And I'll say that. And then I read that she was black.
I mean, honestly, I think it's a tragedy that we have someone who wants to be president who has consistently, over the course of his career, attempted to use race to divide the American people.
In Springfield, they're eating the dogs, the people that came in. They're eating the cats. They're eating the pets of the people that live there.
You talk about extreme.
There is no state in this country where it is legal to kill a baby after it's born. Madam Vice President, I want to get your response to President Trump.
One does not have to abandon their faith or deeply held beliefs to agree. The government, and Donald Trump certainly, should not be telling a woman what to do with her body. I have talked with women around our country. You want to talk about this is what people wanted?
She hates Israel. She wouldn't even meet with Netanyahu when he went to Congress to make a very important speech. But just so you understand, they sent her to negotiate peace before this war started. 3 days later, he went in and he started the war.
Yet again, I said it at the beginning of this debate, you're going to hear a bunch of lies coming from this fellow. And that is another one. When I went to meet with President Zelensky, I've now met with him over 5 times. The reality is it has been about standing as America always should. If Donald Trump were president, Putin would be sitting in Kyiv right now. So I think you've heard tonight 2 very different visions for our country. One that is focused on the future, and the other that is focused on the past.
She's been there for 3.5 years. They've had 3.5 years to fix the border. They've had 3.5 years to create jobs and all the things we talked about. Why hasn't she done it?
So those were the highlights, or some of them. I don't know. What do you think?
Well, it's just it's incredible how noxious Donald Trump is, and that's an accepted standard. But, the deplorables that Hillary talked about, they're calling out of the woodwork to support him. He's as crude and as tasteless as they are. So they figure somehow this might be a good change.
Okay, so, all right, now that statement is good. So you're saying...
thank you. I'm glad you liked it.
You're saying that...
statements I can pump out that you like?
It sounds very affirmative. So the people, the only people, or the majority of the people who voted for Trump or would vote for Trump are deplorable.
Well, that's what Hillary called them, was deplorables. That was a stupid move on her part, too.
Okay. Oh, I thought you were agreeing that they are deplorable?
Some of them are.
No, not all of them. Well, sure, some of the people in the Congress are
Some of
deplorable.
my best friends and family are voting for Donald Trump.
Yeah.
They're not deplorable. I think
Okay.
they're misguided. I think they're making a bad choice, but big surprise, I think
Yeah.
different.
Yeah.
But he's
Okay.
got a bunch of deplorables there that just, for one reason or another, are just in the opposite side of the electorate. So there's nothing more really to say about him. I don't.
Okay. Okay. I think there's a major problem there with the division in the country of both sides calling names. I think Donald Trump was showing signs of becoming like a bitter old man. He
Well, he
lost.
already is a bitter old man.
Well, that's fine. So he's lost. The debate is, to me, not the facts. The debate is personality. It's like Clinton. It's like Nixon and JFK. Nixon just looks grumpy as said, this. And JFK was like, hey, want to go out and play pool? Let's go.
He was calm, cool, just sitting there looking at the camera. Looked great. Yeah. Nixon's hustling in there, sweating, looking awful.
That's right. And the same thing happened with Ronald Reagan. Ronald Reagan's charming. He would tell jokes. He did a very good joke. He says when he was running against
Mondale.
Mondale, yeah, he said,
"There you go again."
There you go again. And then one of his time, maybe he was reelected again. He said, "I will not hold against my competition here. Their lack of experience." That's right.
So he's saying this to the Vice President of the United States. I mean, have been Vice President, not exactly an inexperienced person, But Mondale should have come back on that and said, "Yes, Governor, I am considerably younger than you, but I am certainly not inexperienced, and I'm much more experienced in Washington politics than you have occurred in 4 years." Right. Something snappy like that,
Yeah. So in other words, so to be charming and having people like you, not to think whether you're right or wrong, but you're getting a bond of affinity. I think the master of that, from what I've heard or even listened, was Franklin Delano Roosevelt. And he said, the country loved him. He got elected 4 times.
Sure.
And the one rule he said was on all his radio. First of all, he did a lot of radio broadcasts, right?
Fireside chats, yeah.
That's fireside chat. They look at the name.
Tried to pick that up again.
Fireside chats, and I'm sure he didn't spend a lot of time railing against his oppositions. If he did, he probably would have done it in a more gracious way of saying, like, I'm not sure why these people are objecting to what I want to do, but they certainly have a right to be out of agreement. They don't have to agree with me, but let me just make my case.
That's
the proper way to address opposition. And he would say, or has said in an interview somewhere, I'm not a big scholar. I don't read a lot of books and study history, but he said, when I talk on the radio, I do not talk to the American people. I'm talking to a person. So I'm talking to, I'm talking to Joe or Judy. I'm not talking to the vast audience. I direct it towards a person. So and that was his basic operating principle. So those are the things that Kamala Harris paid attention to, and Donald Trump didn't. He was just, and she was like, listen how eloquent I am. Listen to the vocabulary I have. I like you. I'm here for you. I'm not here for the rich people who are bad. I'm here for you, the average citizen. I'm going to give you this. I'm going to give you that. I'm going to give you some more of this. I'm going to give you some more of that. And then I'm going to put a cherry on it too.
Right.
I always said my favorite I once heard Bernie Sanders gave a speech in person somewhere, and I says, "Oh my God, everybody gets a new car, a free ticket to Sizzler restaurant, and almost like all women are going to lose 46 pounds. I'm going to make sure, and all men, their penises will grow by 3 inches. That's what I'm going to do for you in this country. I'm going to give you everything you want." And so, but that's standard from Democratic politicians are always talking about social benefits that they're going to hand out. She gave handouts, $50,000 to anybody who starts a small business, $25,000 to anybody who wants, poor people who want to buy a house, and $6,000 for the first year of having a child. And something else, some tax cut or something.
Both her and Trump, I noticed, seem to be giving things away to the electorate to sucker them in. They both don't want to tip tips anymore. No taxes on tips.
Well, that came out from Trump, and then she usurped it.
True, but they're both claiming that. It's like they're pandering to the masses.
Yeah.
They're talking about Trump's talking about getting rid of income taxes and running the federal government on tariffs levied on Chinese goods.
Yeah.
They really think the finances of that could work.
Well, I don't know.
It's absurd. I do know, and it's incredibly absurd.
Well, to what degree? Okay, well, that's another topic. So I want to talk about that income tax. But in any event, the Democrat Biden keeps trying to push the student loan elimination.
I think he's given up on that now. I think it was pandering to begin with. I mean, where does he have the power to write off on debts? What about the debtor? How do they get compensated? You're going to pay that, Joe? out of your shell corporations where you're extracting money from Romania, Ukraine, China, and this backdoor deal with Hunter? Is that what's going to pay these creditors with the student loan debt?
Yeah. So there you go. On the income tax thing. So we both agree that the politicians tend to run for office by
But I haven't seen it like that. Both of them are offering things to the electorate. I'm going to give you this. I haven't seen that before, But anyway, something new under the sun, I guess.
Okay, so the thing is with income tax, I consider this is my thing on income personally. The income tax, the federal law, the income tax is so complex that 99% of the population just hands it over to a specialist, like an accountant like you or Carl Schwab. I think there's a company that does tax returns. I forget.
H&R Block.
H&R Block. That's it. Right.
That's my first employer in taxes.
And they charge about $700 for an average return.
No, about 180 for a simple return.
180 for a simple return. Oh, here comes somebody. Mike Jankowicz. Okay. All right. So there's and the law. Hi. Hello, Mike. The law. Let's just go join us in this conversation of talking about the reasonableness of income tax.
Can you see me?
Yeah.
Where are you?
I'm at ground zero.
You got a big blue neon next to you.
Light are.
What is that? It's a memorial of what is a special event?
For 9/11.
Oh, it's a 9/11 memorial, isn't it?
Oh, today is 9/11.
Yeah, those are the Twin Towers. And now they're just a memory.
No. Those are two spotlights.
Yeah, it's now a memory.
There you go.
And the top
Ground zero.
Well, this is a memorial event, right?
Yeah.
It's not
the
a
anniversary's tomorrow, it's today. I'm sorry.
It's not an event of celebration.
Well,
no, not celebration. I don't think celebration would be the right word for it. But
Right.
behind me are those Twin Towers of Light. So I'm about really 4 or 5 blocks below ground zero. And that's where the towers of light are, right behind me. It's like it's coming out of my head. Let me see if I can get a. That looks like a better view. Sans Mike. So anyway, so we can use that as a.
I don't know why it reminds me of a Flash Gordon picture.
Well, maybe without my head in it. Can you?
No. I didn't see that. How do I know that's you? Let me see that again. Oh, there we go. There we go. Now I got an image. Okay, that's good. That's pretty good.
So
Are there a lot of people there?
Well, where I am, it's right near the West Side Highway, as you probably can guess, and there's a lot of people at Ground Zero. A lot of people around the twin pools, two pools of light where the towers used to be. So that was pretty crowded. But I figured I thought this would be a quieter place, but not with the sounds of those motorcycles and whatever.
That's the music of the city.
Yes, it's the music of New York. So anyway, let me see if I can get a quieter place and still get those.
Any thoughts on 9/11 while you're at it, Mike? Nope.
It's not going to be much quieter.
Yeah, what do you think about 9/11? What do New Yorkers think about 9/11?
Well, we're sad about it.
But that's the end of the consideration?
Well, no, we're sad, upset, remembrance. People are, I don't know. I was there. I was right across the river. I was in Brooklyn Heights when it happened. So I wasn't directly involved.
Did you wait a minute? This is significant. You were in Brooklyn Heights. You could see the towers from Brooklyn Heights. You saw the smoke. You didn't see the plane go into the South Tower.
No, I didn't see. I was that was my day to sleep in. So I was awakened by leaks coming from my pipes onto my head, from the pipes in my ceiling, and there's going to be a large garbage truck going by in a second. So anyway.
So you didn't observe firsthand observer of any of the attack.
I saw the smoke. By the time I got outside, I was awakened because the vibration from the first building collapsing had loosened the pipes in my building. It went under the East Riverbed and vibrated in Brooklyn. It went under the river from Manhattan. It vibrated the pipes in Brooklyn. So I went outside. And by that time, the second building had gone down. So I saw two pillars of smoke, basically. And then after a while, when the smoke started coming my way across the river, I said, maybe I shouldn't stand here. But we still didn't know what the hell was going on. We just knew.
Did you notice any aircraft, helicopters or airplanes or jets?
Oh, yeah. I saw a lot of Canadian jets flying over because I think the U.S. because the joint U.S.-Canadian defense policy had kicked in, and so there were Canadian jets. I saw two of them at least flying defense over New York, while the U.S. jets were scrambling all over the place.
I never heard the Canadian jets flew over New York on 9/11. I never heard that. Have you, Ken?
No.
I haven't heard it since, but I saw the insignia. So
wow, why was that occluded from our knowledge?
I haven't the foggiest. Probably the USAF took over after that for the Air National Guard. But I just remember seeing two CF-14 jets flying over New York afterwards. There was a lot of smoke after a while, so I only saw them for a second. It wasn't like once the smoke moved in, it kind of just passed over where I lived, literally by about one block. And so I was able to see some blue sky. I don't know. I never heard.
Did you ever figure out what was going on 9/11?
Well, we heard about it. The TV was, you just went back and listened to the television. We knew it was And people left messages on my machine before my answering machine, back when we had answering machines. Before,
I've got one still.
oh,
I don't have
yeah.
a cell phone either, so it's real important to have an answering machine.
Yes, it is, and you're a man after my heart. That's
I don't want to be connected to everybody else on Earth all the time. I
no,
just like a little distance. I like a couple of seconds to think about it before I have to integrate with whoever it is.
yes, exactly. My feeling, exactly, but it's too late for me. I'm glad some people are holding on to the old ways.
Well, it started off initially. I saw that they caused brain cancer. So I was like my father, who waited for good color television before he bought one. I thought I'd just wait for a good cell phone that didn't cause brain cancer before I bought one. Well, I'm still waiting. And
You're
then
still
I found out about the NSA and the CIA. And I thought, well, maybe not.
well.
Maybe not.
I figured if the NSA and the CIA are listening to me, then the world must be at total peace because they obviously have nothing better to do.
Total peace, eh?
So when did you first find out that it was Osama bin Laden? That they
A couple hours into it. I mean, they had
a couple of hours. A couple of
as I
hours.
remember, they figured that out pretty fast.
How did they figure it out, Mike? What told them it was Osama bin Laden?
I haven't the foggiest. I was
Me
just
either.
watching.
25 years later, me 23 years later, me either.
Well, I'll tell you one thing. You could have probably deduced it since we had armed Osama bin Laden back in the 80s to fight the Soviets.
Right.
And therefore, we probably knew all about him. And
we did.
Probably said, okay, it must be him. But
he's the greatest patsy of all time.
Perhaps. I don't know.
He didn't have anything to do with it, but everybody else, listening Americans, believe that that's the case. But all the other countries of the world, like Pakistan, who is harboring him, they know better. They know he didn't do it, and they know that we did it to ourselves.
Well,
or some of us did it to the rest of us.
I'm not quite sure. The idea is that I know one thing. We certainly, as far as security goes, we certainly dropped the ball on the matter. Regardless, I'm not going to go with. I'm sorry, it's no reflection on you, but there's too many conspiracy theories out there, so I'm refraining from them.
It's better just to acquiesce in that Osama bin Laden did it. Then you don't have to really look at it or look at it at all.
What the hell? We might as well till the next time. And then, no, it's good to be skeptical. It's good to be suspicious. But in the long run, I think either he or some group was certainly involved in it. I mean,
what group was that, Mike? What group could it be? ISIS, Al Qaeda,
ISIS, whatever it is.
Why would they do that?
Okay, come on.
Why
Steve.
Why would they incur the wrath of the United States of America?
Yeah. Absolutely, Steve. But
absolutely,
that's a long discussion.
Ken, absolutely what, Ken?
Well, 9/11 is a big, long discussion, 3 or 4 meetings or 5. I've watched so many things about it.
The rest of your life, Ken.
That's the rest of your life. There's so many details and money and the gold.
It's been 23 years and look at what we got still.
I know. It's an Epstein thing.
Epstein, there's another.
Right.
Yeah, what a great way to commit suicide. I couldn't imagine a person succeeding at that.
Right. But I want to go back to what we were talking about.
Before you do, I just want to bring up one thing.
Go ahead.
We also have to ask, why did Hitler declare war on the United States?
Yeah, that's right.
Japan bomb Pearl Harbor. We don't know, but
he didn't need to invite the Americans to the party at that point. But then again, he knew that they were coming because it was what the opposition needed in order to beat them, because they had everybody else pretty well rolled back on their heels. Yeah. So they knew the Americans had to come in, and the Japanese had to attack them because of the oil. they were running out of oil, and the Americans were keeping it from them.
Okay, great. So
Indonesia.
Actually, the Japanese had to attack the British and to a certain extent the Dutch. They were worried about the American fleet, which was which would take care of the British flank.
The Japanese had a bigger fleet than we did at the outset of the war, but they could produce 2 battleships a year. We could produce 12.
That's right.
They were fucked, and they knew it. Yamamoto knew it.
Of why would Hitler 2 weeks later declare war on us? Well, there's a lot of reasons, but the fact of the matter is he did.
Yeah.
So my feeling is until somebody comes up with evidence for something different, I mean, pretty hard evidence, we just got to go with the evidence we got.
What evidence do you have, Mike?
What? The fact that 2 planes hit the World Trade Center?
No, how Building 7 fell.
No, come on. I don't want to go rambling all through all of that. Come on.
That goes on. To escape.
Come on, it's a big Monopoly game. I totally, Steve and I
can't let Mike speak, and we'll stop. I promise you, we'll stop.
Okay, all right. I'm going to mute you and let him answer.
Let me put it this way. When you've got the evidence that I have is what the government said. They came up with some evidence, enough evidence, so that it was at least believable. However, if somebody comes up with evidence that's just as good or better, that something else happened, fine. I'm open-minded.
Okay, no, I've seen that too. All right, yes, absolutely. There's lots of evidence, but you probably haven't seen it. But it's all out there on the internet. Triple indemnity. But I want to go back to what we were talking about before, because I know Mike has a viewpoint on this. What do you think about the functionality of U.S. income tax on a method to control the population, as opposed to being a method to fund the government? What do you think?
I think income tax is a method of taking money from American citizens to give to the American government. It's also a very good method. I can vouch for this because my father was supposed to be a very, very tough and very aggressive CPA. It also opened a whole profession called certified public accountants. So what they do is they take from the American people to fund the government. And then the accountants try to take back some of what the government took and give it back to the people. And it's great. Look, it keeps us occupied.
Okay.
Well, it's all about to change, Mike.
Why? Who's getting what?
For one thing, the IRS is rolling out free file. So a lot of people are just going to file directly on the internet with the tax thing and not go to a CPA anymore. So this is going to require some changes on their part. Plus, the IRS is hiring a whole lot of new accountants and agents to examine particularly partnerships and S corporations. The thing that your father was doing so well with, well, it's all coming back now. In the next 10 years, they're going to be auditing a lot of those. And it's going to change the fundamental lay of the game. And there's a lot of other changes that are coming in. It's just going to totally transform it.
This year?
No, this is what I do for a living.
Yeah, but wait a minute. Is this to take effect for the 2024 taxes?
It's going to be taking effect in the 20s. These are changes that are coming in. And they got free file they rolled out last year. But a lot of, very small returns are not going to have to go to accountants anymore. They can do it themselves online.
But they could always do that through H&R Block. I mean, if they wanted to. But if you want a good...
and a lot of people will. It's just changing the game.
But if you want somebody, and since the IRS is hiring more agents, that means people are going to need good accountants if they want to save money. My father didn't handle corporate accounts. Very rarely. He handled individuals. And so he felt much better about that. But corporations they don't have individual CPAs. They have divisions, battalions of CPAs. But the idea is that I think you're still going to need good CPAs.
The IRS would like to get rid of about a third of them, and maybe up to a half. That's why when they brought in preparer identification numbers 10, 12 years ago, they were trying to make all accountants have certain educational standards, but then the AICPA sued them and kept the IRS from having such control. But that was the IRS's first move to get rid of about a third of preparers because they're that bad. I just wrote a note here to a CPA had answered a solicitation on my part. And
Steve, you mean they're getting rid of their own accountants?
No, they're hiring massively. You know, there was $80 billion that was allocated to the IRS during Biden's first term. The Republicans are trying to get rid of, and that's to the IRS in modernization, and a lot of it's for new enforcement. So they're hiring massive numbers of accountants, and what they're doing is they'd like to get rid of a third or a half of the about 700,000 tax preparers in this country because it's gotten so bad.
Well, wait a second. Hold it. How are they going to do that? They're going to tell people you can't become an accountant. First of all, there's a difference between just a public accountant and a certified public accountant.
What's the difference?
Difference is, well, besides education, the fact of the matter is a certified public accountant has a degree. He has an accounting degree, a graduate degree.
He has a degree of some sort.
Well, it's a graduate.
Accounting.
It's a graduate degree.
No, it's not a graduate degree. I am a CPA.
Well, it is a graduate degree because it's postgraduate. So that's a graduate degree. But the fact of the matter is, if you're a CPA, you have obviously more training, more standing, and the most important thing is usually, not always, unfortunately, maybe not even usually, but you're supposed to be better at it. So in other words,
they're much better at it, and that's why the IRS wants to get rid of about half of them.
But how are they going to do that?
By examining their returns. Have you heard that corporate returns are rarely audited?
So in other words, they're going to start auditing their clients, basically, not the CPAs themselves.
The CPAs produce the financial accounting or the
right.
reporting.
So the more audits they do, the more they hope to reduce the popularity of CPAs then.
No, they don't care about the popularity. It's the actual functionality of what they do. So, well, I was about to tell you, I wrote this memo to somebody, and I told her I have 5 pages of references, CPAs that I've worked for. I also have another 5 pages of CPAs that I work for that I would not work for again. And I told her I'll send her those if she wants them, and she can talk to them, and I'll only talk about what they will talk about. But these other half of the CPAs I've worked for, they do some very radioactive shit at best. There's lots of things that you can do in reporting. Don't expect a CPA necessarily by that title will give you really accurate reporting, or nor do you want it. Because what your goal is to reduce taxes and not get your ass nailed for it. That's the real goal all the time.
Is to do what? I'm sorry, somebody went by loudly.
To get as much tax back as you can and not get nailed by the IRS for whatever you're representing.
Right. And the idea is a good CPA, a very good CPA will still be able to do that. So in other words, you're saying
what is a very good CPA? You misunderstood what I was saying. The object of the game is to pay less taxes without getting nailed by the IRS.
Right.
That's the objective. That's what a good CPA is. But unfortunately, a good CPA may be criminal. That's what I'm saying.
Well, let's put it this way. I know from having lived through it that there are many times that my father went to court and basically just said to the IRS, he said, "Look, we're going down the line on this," and he said he would fight tooth and nail to the very end, and he'd fight for everything. And I know on certain occasions the IRS is willing to make a deal, because what happens is the IRS
they're always willing to make a deal, Mike. Always.
Right. So the fact of the matter is, he would make a better deal than most other people would.
What makes you think so?
Because I I'm not allowed to say.
You're not. Well, just hint at it.
Why not? Now you're going to make a conspiracy theory out of this, because an accountant and his client have the same kind of privilege, similar to a lawyer and his client.
Similar, but not the same. They don't have exclusivity.
But they have
And
confidentiality.
they have what?
Confidentiality.
Up to a point, but not in court.
Well, wait a second. Up to a point, even in court.
Mike,
But-
Mike, I'm a CPA. I live this.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah,
going
I
to
know.
know
Well-
what the standards are.
Well, my father was able to maintain confidentiality in some court cases. So I don't know how you function, Steve, but he was able to do it.
Well, he's compelled to tell the truth. He's got no reason to have doctor, patient, or lawyer client privilege at all. Accountants are straight open, wide open books. Now, we've tried to get this sort of thing, but Congress won't allow it. They got to feel like the accountant has to cough up everything he knows.
You can do it to a degree in court. It depends upon the kind of case. I'll tell you this much. I just know that it happened. He was able to maintain the confidentiality between him and his client when the case was in court. So you want, and to be quite honest, regardless of that, the confidentiality, regardless of how far it extends to court, it certainly extends to this show. So I will maintain the confidentiality between my father and his clients, some of whom are still alive.
Well, that's okay, Mike. Nobody wants to know anything about those things.
Well, you were asking, somebody did.
I was asking what?
You were asking me for examples. You were asking me specific information, and I said I can't say. Actually, I didn't use those exact words.
No, Mike, you misinterpreted.
And what were you saying? What were you asking?
I think we beat this topic to death.
Okay, wait a minute, not me. Oh, please
Not
handle.
me, if I may say so. But go on.
I think you haven't addressed the point I'm trying to make. The IRS, the tax codes are so complex, and they seem to encourage you to lie and cheat. Like, how much have you given to the thrift store? How much have you done this? How much have you spent on meals? It's set up to make you file for false information. And it's so complex, it looks to me like it's a good method to get dirt on everybody. So you have that as a background so you can come after them. And I understand it's a functionality to fund the government, but there's other ways to do that. You can fund the government with sales tax. You can fund the government with corporate tax or tariffs. There's no need for an income tax except for the purpose of controlling and overseeing and having a handle on controlling the public at individuals. That's my viewpoint. So to disagree with it, that's what I'm saying. I don't think it's necessary. I think it's a tool of tyranny.
Thanks for sharing.
Tool of tyranny. That's good. I like that phrase, a tool of tyranny.
Well, wait a second, hold it. The purpose of the IRS in its most mundane form is to get money for the government from individual citizens and corporations, right?
Right.
To fund the government through taxes.
To raise internal revenue.
That's the apparency.
So what is the, I mean, I know that there are theories that it's to control the population and keep them in line or something.
Right.
Maybe not be able to use the IRS or abuse the IRS to that purpose.
Right.
But it's not the primary purpose.
Well, our good friend Al Capone, right? Just, going around selling some liquor. Couldn't get him on that. Put him on income tax fraud.
Yeah, he was the biggest seller of income tax in history.
Oh, another one
He's
is
the biggest single figure that motivates people to pay the taxes.
Another one was Hunter Biden.
Yeah,
tax evasion.
Yep, he pleaded guilty. 1.7 million, I think he owes.
No, he paid it, but he didn't pay it on time.
Well, he's paid it now. He's pleaded guilty.
Yeah,
Well,
so I'm just saying it's a way they get all of your financial information. every place you went, everything you buy, everything you own, and every investment you've done, and all their life insurance, everything. They get all of this information, all your medical bills.
They don't give a damn about any of that.
Well,
But if you
you're
want to
just
be
standing
paranoid
up.
to think they do, go ahead.
You say them. I'm talking about an institute. They have that information. They have that information, and they can prosecute you for violating any of these laws, which they kind of invited you to violate. How much money did you make? How much money did you give to the thrift store? Oh, I gave him $350,000. How much money did you give to your, gifts? Anything that's deductible, it's an estimate. Yeah, they can audit you and ask for receipts, but they encourage you. That's the way to get your taxes down, is by boasting up your deductions. It seems to me.
Well,
And
look at it this way. First of all, there have been people who have been pushing for a flat tax, and I guess there's pros and cons to that we don't want to get into. But
what are the pros?
The pros of a flat tax. The pros were, I'm not in favor of it, but the pros of a flat tax were,
if you're richer, you pay less money.
Everybody pays the same percentage. Unfortunately, that doesn't work out well for people who aren't rich. That's why I'm against it. It doesn't work out well. Yes, it works out much better for people who are rich, or if you're a corporation, than it does if you're an individual. However, I think that, first of all, as far as having all this information that they have, theoretically, and I believe by law, they're not supposed to share that information. Now, whether or not they do or don't is another matter. They're not supposed to share that information. Supposedly, as the old line goes, you could put down as your profession bank robber, and they don't care as long as you're paying your taxes. Now, of course, that's an extreme and comical example, but the fact of the matter is, it doesn't matter what your profession is. They want the tax money. That's what they're about. They want the money that they are entitled to.
Ken, I'd appreciate it if you stop muting me.
Okay.
All right. John, what were you talking about? I had a good point, I thought. No, I completely lost it. Never mind. Sorry.
All right.
Who's muted? I don't know.
Oh, the greatest influence on paying taxes was Al Capone, because everybody else, shivers that they're able to nail Al Capone and get him on that, considering everything else he did. But the IRS just couldn't figure out how he could have such a lavish lifestyle on the income from a used furniture dealer. They just couldn't understand how he could make that much money. He had this incredible lifestyle when he was just selling used furniture. I understand that his accountant argued with the IRS over a couple of $100. I wouldn't have been surprised that accountant ended up in the Chicago River or the Lake Michigan.
Well, actually, I don't think he did. He basically, Al Capone, I think the government was aware that he was doing some illegal things.
Yeah, I think they were.
The problem was proving it. And
that wasn't too hard, actually.
No, it wasn't.
They looked at his receipts. What he spent.
Well, he didn't have receipts for a lot of the things.
A lot of it, but a lot of it he did. It's a lot of money.
They got him on what they could get him on, which was tax evasion.
The rest of his life.
That's right.
Great. The murdering son of a bitch, bastard, evil person that should have been drawn and quartered.
Actually,
all these evil bastards.
Al Capone did some good things.
He did. They loved him in his neighborhood in Chicago, in Cicero.
He kitchens. And he helped. And he helped the career of Maury Amsterdam, and that was a major contribution.
Now that I've never heard. That I have never heard.
Yeah, he supposedly he loved Maury Amsterdam. He thought he was a great comedian and championed his career. Okay.
Yeah, his career began with the Dick Van Dyke Show, I think, and Capone went to jail in the 30s. So that must have been a
Maury,
child star that he loved there, Maury
no,
Amsterdam,
no.
who
When
was a
Maury
great comedian.
Amsterdam,
I agree.
when Maury Amsterdam did the Dick Van Dyke Show, he had been in show business for several
A
decades.
while, I know.
Yeah. So,
So had Sally. She had actually opened the Flamingo when the Flamingo in Las Vegas first opened. It was Sally who played Sally on Dick Van Dyke. I forget her name. Rosemarie.
you
She
mean
was
the
the
first?
opening act. She was a singer. She was the opening act for the Flamingo when it opened the doors in Las Vegas, I think in 46 or something.
You mean actually she was there the last night that Ben Siegel operated the
No, the
Flamingo,
first night.
and the last night that Ben Siegel ran the
Was he
Flamingo.
killed on the night that the Flamingo
No,
opened?
actually he wasn't.
No, he was killed later. He was killed in Beverly Hills, too.
Yes, he was killed back in Beverly Hills.
If I remember
And,
the movie correctly.
well, the movie was a movie.
It was pretty decent, I thought.
Well, the idea that Virginia Hill stole the money from without Ben Siegel knowing it is
Oh,
a little
really?
to me.
I didn't know that. Yeah, I don't doubt. I doubt that too.
Yeah, and I think Meyer Lansky doubted it also, and it was they didn't put it past Ben Siegel to skim off a few $1,000,000 for himself,
Oh yeah.
and then tell her one of her ex-boyfriends, George Epstein, to put it in a Swiss bank account. But anyway, I hope you like this background noise.
I do. What are you on a bike or something? You're moving fast.
No. I'm standing there. There are the towers of light behind me.
Yeah, there they are.
But unfortunately, the lower part, West Street, which is really
Wait. You know what? Let me interrupt you a second, Mike.
Yeah.
Look over your right shoulder, I think. Look to your right.
There's an apartment building.
No, there's a big tower. Is that the new World Trade Center?
Behind to my right.
Yeah, that is.
Yeah, that's
the far right.
The Freedom Tower.
Okay. And it's 1,776 feet high.
Absolutely.
I don't know what the bloody hell it is.
I think it's the top of the pole in 1776.
Yeah, top of the pole.
But that is the number.
That's right.
What did you think of the debate last night, Mike? Did you watch it with Kamala and?
Yes, I did. I thought
that
Donald Trump missed his calling. He should have been should have had his own comedy show. Some of the thing about eating dogs, people eating dogs in Ohio.
Eating pets. They'll eat the cats too.
Pets, not just strays.
Imagine eating a cat. But I'm vegetarian, so I'm no good.
But Springfield, Ohio, denied that they had any reported incidents of that. So I'm beginning to get suspicious that maybe it was Donald Trump who was eating the animals.
His debate with Biden a couple of months ago, I was talking to my brother, and he was lambasting Biden, and I acknowledged I hadn't really noticed how bad Biden was doing. Yeah, I noticed he lost his train of thought there because I was focusing on Trump's lies. And my brother pauses at that point and he says, "What lies?" And the next day there's an article in the paper with 28 lies that he made, and I sent it to my brother. He sends it back, fake news. And the MAGAites can't see the lies. That's why we're just in such shock. The MAGAites don't see these as lies, although he has alternative realities coming out of his mouth constantly.
Well, that's because that goes back to my thing about evidence. Why I'm trying to say evidence-based, because people can hear something. You can tell people the earth is flat with no evidence whatsoever, obviously. And some people are going to say, oh, I'd like to believe that. So the earth is flat. Donald Trump, they just believe whatever comes out of his mouth. I imagine if Donald Trump told them that their wives were cheating at him, they'd kill their wives. The problem to me is the people that believe this. Now, if somebody wants to say, well, I support what Donald Trump wants to do with the country or something, I could say, all right, I completely disagree with you, but at least you're not believing everything that comes out of his mouth. But I thought in that debate last that the saddest thing was when they asked him if he had a plan for health care, and they kept on asking him, and finally said, "Well, I have a concept of a plan." I'd
Yeah, I
really
remember
like to
that.
know what a concept of a plan is. I mean, does it mean that he was looking up the word plan in the dictionary? I don't really. I think I I think it should have been a disaster for him, but it probably won't be. If the people who are going to believe him are going to believe him no matter what. It's
You
a
remember
cult.
when Hillary was the first lady in 92, that was her focus was healthcare. And she worked up a plan, and then it got rejected, and then we came up with Obamacare, and that's got marginalized. Uh, from that beginnings there, 30 years ago at least, the Republicans have never come up with a health care plan. They always talk about something better, but produce nothing better themselves ever. So their plan is like the Zionists invading Israel. They had no plans for the Palestinians. They never have had. They just expected them to go away. And it's the same thing with the Republicans here. They don't have a plan, a health care plan, but they keep talking about, keep hinting it, keep attacking what is in place and what's been recommended, and never have to come up with a plan themselves. It's like they figure it one day it'll all disappear and they'll stop asking about health care.
By the way, Steve, point of information: the Zionists didn't invade Israel; they were given Israel.
By
They were
who?
given, yeah,
By
by
who?
by the United Nations and, in essence, Great Britain.
Well, why did any 1948 war? Where did that come from?
1948 war was after Israel was, in other words, the United Nations approved the state of Israel. Then the countries around it, the mostly Arab countries around it, went to war. So Israel calls it its war of independence, but in actuality, they had already gained statehood in the eyes of the United Nations.
And it had not become a nation. It hadn't joined the United Nations at that point in
It was
48.
it was made, in other words, United Nations voted to grant statehood to the state of Israel.
Okay, Mike, let's say I grant you that. Just answer this question. What was their plan for the Palestinians?
The plan for the Palestinians now remember, we've got different forms of Zionism going on here. And there almost was a civil war in Israel between the
Probably should have been.
between the radical, if the Arabs wouldn't have declared war, there might have been because you had the Irgunis or the Stern Gang, which is the extreme wing of the Irgunis, and you had the Haganah, which represented a much larger portion of the population. But the Haganah plan was that Palestinians would live there. They would be granted equal rights as far as the people living there. They wouldn't, if you were a Palestinian coming from the United States, you wouldn't have the same right as somebody Jewish coming from the United States, let's say, who wanted to immigrate there. But
different levels of rights then, Mike? Different levels of rights?
No, there were the different levels of rights came in gradually. Their plan, they at least had a plan. I'm not saying the plan went into effect or worked or was or came to fruition, but they did have a plan that the Palestinians would be granted rights, automatic rights as Israeli citizens. As we can, and by the way, there are many Palestinians that were granted those rights.
I think about 750,000, about 700,000 some Arab Israeli citizens.
Yeah, about that, I think. Well, at the time, I guess. But the fact is that, as far as I'm concerned, the plan at least didn't come to fruition the way it should have. But it's I don't know. I think I personally, my idea, the Zionism that I was raised with, was that, hey, if you live in Israel, whether you're, a Palestinian who's there before the state, before it became a state, or whether or not you're not anybody who's living there, who is a citizen of Israel, should have the opportunity to be a citizen of Israel, have the same rights as any other citizen. And Israel would function basically as a minimally religious state, but as a haven for Jews, which is really, I think, one of the primary one of the primary factors in the UN making it a state, because during the Second World War, nobody wanted the Jews, so that wanted to escape Nazi Germany or the German occupied territories.
Yeah, they were really treated horribly, especially in Latin American countries that just wouldn't let them in anymore.
Well, the United States wouldn't let them in.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I'm sorry I opened this can of worms. I didn't need to, so I apologize, gentlemen.
You had an analogy. What was the thing you were making an analogy? Oh, the fact that the Republicans don't have a health plan. Yeah, they don't even have a plan. That's just it. There is no plan. So there's no plan that didn't come to fruition or didn't work or wasn't working. They didn't have a plan to begin with.
Never have had a plan.
And
they have a concept. Donald Trump revealed that they had a concept, at least. And they're working on it, theoretically.
He didn't say what the concept was.
No, he didn't.
So, I think we're in a situation right now where people are going to have to say, well, if they want to vote for Donald Trump, they've got to vote. They're going to be voting for somebody that may possibly get rid of the existing health plan and replace it with nothing. You're on your own.
That's what we need, more nothing.
Yeah.
Thank you, Donald.
That's right. And that's what he presented to us in the debate. I mean, everything was about immigration. It was about claims. Nothing that came out of his mouth was supported by evidence.
Yeah.
And by the way, I was listening for it. I wanted to say, okay, let's see, Donald, come up with something.
He's a salesman. If you believe, that's all he needs. He's a salesman. And he's got all sorts of alternative realities for you to choose from to believe. Pick one.
But if you're a salesman, don't you at least try to say, if you're a good salesman, well, let me tell you why this car is a good car.
He does that.
Well, he doesn't know, because a salesman would say, this car can go from 0 to 60 in 10 seconds. Donald Trump offered us nothing in that debate like that. He didn't even tell us how it would work, how it operated, what you would get from it. He talked about people pouring over the borders. Well, if they stop pouring over the borders, how is that going to be how is that going to be good? If people stopped eating dogs in Springfield, Ohio, yeah, okay. So how is that going to improve America? He had nothing.
It's so tight right now. I felt at the end of that debate last night that she got a bump of 2 or 3 percentage points. That says a guy with a minor in political science thinks that she got a little nudge out of that. But I think it's still so tight, it's probably going to take a bombshell. If something comes off negative to one of the candidates or the other, that might be enough to tip the election in their favor. So if something really nasty comes out about Harris, or something really unforgivable comes out about Trump, maybe his activity with Epstein down there in Florida and all those young girls that he was enjoying, maybe something of that level it would take. And if something comes out like that, that'll tilt. I think that might tilt the election because it's that tight.
I hate to say it, Steve, but for at least the vast majority of supporters, I don't think any of that'll matter.
I agree. For the majority of the heavy maggots, definitely.
Yeah.
60-70% of them. Absolutely. Maybe a few, 10, 20, 30% might be influenceable. That's why it has to be something really big. An October surprise, literally.
What what could do it? What could come out about Donald Trump? Now, you're talking about the heavy duty maggots.
Yeah, right. We're not going to sway them.
Right. And therefore, he'll lose. Let's say he loses by 10 million votes and by 75 or 100 electoral votes. Then he'll just claim it was fixed. He could lose by 100 million votes and claim it was fixed because it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter to them. The idea, if he doesn't win, it was fixed.
Right. I remember in the 2020 election, everybody was so concerned about what if he doesn't accept the results. And I was thinking, well, who the fuck cares? You know, the Oval Office for a couple of nights before they clue him into the fact that he has been deposed as president and he needs to go back to his home now, that he doesn't have the Oval Office anymore. That's what I was thinking. I had no idea that he could unleash something like January 6th. I thought, well, big fucking deal. So he's unhappy he lost an election. But no, there's lots to worry about. So there could be some mega thing happening again. I sure hope not, but maybe.
There'll be something happening. The fact is,
there'll be unhappiness. Definitely.
If God willing, he loses. But the idea is that most of his followers, there are supporters of Donald Trump, as we know, who are not irrational. They like his, his economic. I don't want to call it a plan, but
these are members of my family and friends. Yeah, those people. Go ahead.
Okay.
They can be saved. Not deep maggots.
But they don't make up the majority of his followers. So that's why I always say the problem is not necessarily Donald Trump. Let's face it, Donald Trump is a wimp who wants other people to do his fighting for him. And there's a substantial number of people that are going to do that. A lot of them were in the Capitol on January 6th. And they're going to try to do it again, and they're going to try to do it even a worse version of that, or a more intensive version of that. So, that's one of the main reasons that people are saying Donald Trump is a threat to democracy, is a threat to the United States. It's his followers. I mean, his cult-like followers who are the threat to the United States. But this has been a problem with America in the past. We had Huey Long down south back in the day. We've always had situations, every few decades where some despot will come along, and even if he's an incompetent, Huey Long was much more competent than Donald Trump, but where all of a sudden a large percentage, even though a minority, but a large minority, decides that they don't like the way the United States is, and they may be happier with the dictatorship. I mean, let's face it.
What do you think about his supporters? How would you characterize them?
I know again, I don't want to say that they're all, they're all this or they're all that.
I had an interesting experience recently. I went to a meeting. I didn't know what the group was, but it turned out to be the John Birch Society.
Oh, God.
So I sat down, had dinner with them. They ran through I think a video, maybe some slides and stuff, talked about things, talked about how much they like Donald Trump and how America's going to hell and everything's decaying. And I realized that these people are like the muscle and sinew of middle America. These are people that have done what they're supposed to do, and they're seeing their civilization fall apart, and they're livid about it. There's homos everywhere. I don't know what to expect my child to go through at school today. I don't know what to expect on the highway. They're just seeing it fall apart, and they're mad as hell, and they're not going to take it anymore. And these are armed people too. So many of them are ready for a revolution. They don't like the way things evolve. They don't see a way out of it, and they just want to separate.
Yep. And and again, they don't they're scared.
Mm.
They're scared. And to be quite honest, there are some crazy things going on. Okay,
Lots of them.
but
Yeah.
the fact is that they don't like the way their kids are being taught in school. Well, if that's the case, rather than go change it, they'd rather change, in other words, address each individual problem. But people, they can't handle it anymore. And we also have another problem. We have the internet, where people can get whatever they want to call truth.
Really?
I mean, they could just go online and find somebody who said something without any evidence necessarily, but just something they can agree with, or something that addresses
Reinforces their opinion.
right. And that's it. So nobody, I mean, the days when we had Walter Cronkite and Harry Reasoner and those guys, and everybody said, okay, we'll believe that. I mean, whether or not it was true, we know now a lot of what we thought was true wasn't. But at least we had a baseline.
Yeah.
We had something where we could say, where people would agree and say, all right, that's probably true.
Yeah. Well said. You had a baseline. You had a reference point to extrapolate up or down from, or left and right. You understood where you were at, and kind of understood where the person you're talking to is at. But yeah, it's just there's no bearings anymore. It's just so much chaos. And I think it's gotten worse in these last 2 months building up to the election. I think it'll improve quite a bit after the election, but we'll see.
It depends upon what happens. But I think today that if the Japanese bombed Pearl Harbor, half the country wouldn't believe it.
Well, we'd all say, why the hell are they doing that? They're attacking their biggest market. Why would they do that? Same with the Chinese. The Chinese don't want to throw down with us. But we've enabled them to join the 21st century by access to our markets. I was in Beijing in 92 and 2001. In 92, it was like the 1900s. They really were using horses for some transport. And in 2001, a month after 9/11, it was transformed. It was a 21st century. Beijing was a world-class city, and they were proud of it. They've been working very hard for a long time, and they like what they've got. They don't need to throw down with the United States or anybody else. They want happiness everywhere.
Well, they want to certainly hold on to what they've gained and keep gaining more.
Right.
But I think that I had people talking about 9/11. I had people say to me, people who are not from New York, they said, well, Mike, how do you know that the World Trade Center happened? How do you know that those buildings were actually knocked down? And I would say, because schmuck, I'm looking where they were right now. I mean, I'm staring out my window and I can see they're not there.
Did you have friends that doubted the existence of them to begin with?
They didn't doubt their existence. They doubted that there was one guy who actually doubted that they were actually knocked down.
Oh, I see.
That they actually disappeared.
Right.
So, and then they were saying, well, how do you know that it happened
on 9/11?
And 9/11 happened, that there was, I said, look, I saw the smoke. I was standing there. Finally, I had to say to him, I said, look, buddy boy, are you calling me a liar? Because I got a mean right hook. But
Mike, you can settle down. You are a liar. You're a breathing human being. You're a liar.
No.
Yes, you are.
No.
When was the last time you lied? Just now. You lied to me. You said, no. You're lying now.
No, I'm telling the truth.
You are. When's the last time you lied, Mike?
I never. Don't you know that I cannot tell a lie?
Really?
And the next line should be, I'm a liar.
Okay. What's your birthday? Are you a Gemini? Because they lie all the time. Like Trump. Trump's a Gemini.
Is he really?
Yes, he is. With a Leo ascendant. So with an extra push of, aren't I beautiful? And can you stop looking at me? No, you can't.
Well, I know I'm not a liar because I was born on St. Patrick's Day. Makes me
are you Irish?
In the heart. No, but not by
I'm a quarter Irish.
and you know that in Ireland, people in Ireland do not lie. They might extend the truth a
Might
little bit.
prevaricate a little bit.
Yes, but you don't lie.
No,
Um,
that'd be a
that's
sin against God.
the idea is what was it? You always have to find. You always have to make sure you don't lie, but
Uh-huh.
like you can phrase it in such a way so that it may mean something other than what it means.
Ambiguity. Keep that in full force.
It's like
Who
when
was
you
it?
go on the witness stand.
Was it Diogenes who lifted his lantern next to the door looking for an honest man in Rome? Or was it Athens, but failed?
Yes. Or what we can go to Sodom and Gomorrah.
Oh,
Find,
no.
you know, well, it wasn't 10 honest people, but 10 decent people. But the fact is that, well, there's ways to lie. If you're lying to spare somebody, in other words, if if somebody, just passed away and you don't want to tell their mother or something like that, so and spare her the grief because she's not well. So you're going to lie and say, "Oh yeah, so and so's okay."
He's hanging on. Yeah, right.
He's hanging on.
Exactly.
All right. So that's why I believe intentions matter also. If you're lying, what are you lying? Why are you lying?
Yeah.
Are you lying because you're trying to, if you're in the middle of a war and you're lying because if you don't lie, thousands of your own troops will die or something like that. What did Churchill say? In war, truth is so valuable it must be protected by a bodyguard.
I've also heard the saying in war, the first casualty is the truth.
The truth. So, but the fact is, at least you could say your intentions were, well, we were lying because if we didn't lie, more lives would have been lost than otherwise.
No,
okay.
Exactly.
It may not be a good thing, but your intentions were good.
Yeah.
But if you're lying because
you're trying to advance yourself and get something you don't deserve, then that's bad lying. Good lying is trying to protect people's emotions. At least we think that at the time.
And that's why we're intentions. So does anybody think, anybody here, you, me, or Ken, think that Donald Trump was lying for a noble reason?
I think that many people around him, his supporters, and he himself thinks so. He thinks things have gone so awry and are so perverted now that all you really need to do is to vote this one more time in November, and you'll never have to do it again because they'll fix the problems. Put them back in office. Let them get rid of 50,000 civil servants and put their cronies in these jobs, and watch how efficient the government is then when you've just placed 50,000 servants that know what they're doing with 50,000 people who don't.
Well, what was the thing, the joke about, probably not a joke, how Donald Trump says, I will end the war in Ukraine in 3 days or whatever.
In a day. Right.
Yeah. And he would basically say, I'm giving all our supplies to Russia, and Russia's going to take over Ukraine, and it'll end the war.
There you go.
He can then say he wasn't lying. It's what your intentions are, how you're going to do it, etc. So, but then again, how he's going to do it, he only has a concept of a plan. So that's what we have to remember. Steve, you look
working on the concepts. Trust us.
Yes. So okay, we can trust his concepts. Personally, I think the worst concept that ever happened in the Trump family was when Donald was conceived. That's my opinion. Ken, you stayed pretty mute on this.
Oh yeah. You guys are having a good conversation. That makes me happy.
You're basking in the ways of our verbiage.
That's it. There you go.
Contribute ourselves? Any verbiage to share?
Oh, me? No. I don't have any opinion on this.
Well,
I can tell you this very interesting story.
Okay.
As a lesson. So I'm going to Asia, and I'm going to wind up going to China. So I went down to the council to get a visa.
Mm.
And I got the paperwork done and I got a picture and got everything set up and did it. And then I packed up, I came home a day later. I open up and I look, and I only have one passport, which is the passport I had from the last time I went, because I wanted to show them I'd been there before. So it's okay, let me go again. And I couldn't find my current passport. So I'm going like, oh God. It's sort of like in New York, you miss the express, so you take the local. Oh, the local's not running. I got to go upstairs. I got to walk in the streets, and it's raining. I'm ready to go.
Take your cab.
They had told me, you're going to come back Thursday. I'll give you the thing. And I lost the passport. How did I lose the passport? I can't, what am I getting, that senile that I don't remember when I put them in a way and I didn't get the other one? So I went down there this morning and I went and I said, listen, I'm supposed to come in tomorrow to pick up my, get the visa, but I can't find my passport. It's either here or I lost it and I'll have to go get a new one.
They kept it.
No. We kept your passport. We have it. I said, oh. So the point being that as it's another thing, don't worry so much. Because you get all concerned about a meeting, you got to count the votes, or the teacher's going to demand it, or you're not ready with the work that's supposed to happen at the corporate meeting. Something happened. The meeting was postponed because the CEO had to go to his daughter's graduation, or another guy got COVID. He can't come in. Life affects things. You can make a plan, you can worry, but then it could be a waste of time. And a lot of times you just got to, chill, see what happens. I mean, losing a passport's not the end of the world, but I would have had to go, pay extra money. I go, please give me a passport so I can get the visa stamp. But, so it was okay. So that's the little thing, that little note about don't worry. Life is in you today. You make your own tomorrows.
And we'll get through this. This too shall pass.
This too shall pass. That's right.
No plan survives the first day of combat.
That's right. That's right. And they're very efficient, the Chinese. They check you in, and there's like at 9 a.m., they opened up at 9 a.m. I got there today at like 9:20. There were like 40 people already sitting there waiting to go up, and they have like 6 people doing the paperwork. So there's a vast exchange and I looked at everybody. It's not like they were Chinese Americans. There were all kinds of people.
Are you going to China soon then, Ken?
The what?
When are you going to China?
Early November.
Oh, cool. How long?
I don't know, anywhere from, I got 90 days, but I might spend the rest of my life there. I don't know how long.
Is Grace going with you?
No. Because we're going on.
Yourself?
No, we're going. I have a friend who's 50 years old. He lives in Shanghai, but we're going to go to Bangkok and take a yacht for his 50th birthday for a week. And after that, I'll go to Shanghai. He lives there. He's American, but he's married a Chinese woman, and he's very successful there.
Well, we'll have to do lunch sometime. I've been to China 3 times, and I can recommend a couple of things to you. If you got a chance, go to Tibet, because there's no place like it on earth.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah. There's nothing like the Himalayas.
Oh, they got a bullet train going there now.
They do.
In fact, there was a fantastic video about what they had to do to build that train. It's amazing the technology they have to do because of the permafrost that they were building it over.
Well, and the mountains and the terrain is just extraordinary.
Yeah.
I was there in '92, and they had built a railway station in Lhasa. They had the railway station built. And the travelers were always joking to ourselves like, oh, yeah, they're going to build a train up here one day. Right. God, they did.
They did it. It's amazing what they've done. It's absolutely amazing.
They laid the track in one gargantuan unit, and then they bolted into place. So the way they construct railroads is really extraordinary now, and they got them all over China. They're really big on this.
I think it was 190 miles. So maybe it's more than that, 900 miles. They got a lot of trains. So all you have to do is learn to speak Mandarin and bow your head and you can go spend the rest of your life there.
Can get a phrase book that has Chinese on one side and English on the other, and get used to looking things up and pointing at the kanji, and they'll understand you. And a lot of them already speak English anyway.
That's right. That's right. Everything there, like the last time I was there, it's written in Chinese, then it's written in English. All the road signs and everything, because English is the universal language.
It is.
You know. Oh, no. The people are very friendly.
Before you go there, and I can give you some ideas that might help.
Oh, really? Okay, good. I'll do that. Yes,
whatever
sir.
you do, don't protest in places like Tiananmen Square or something like that, because otherwise you'll be going viral from a Chinese prison.
That's right.
30 years.
The Chinese would like you to keep out of their politics.
No, they're gonna. Well, I don't think they would use me as a candidate for organ transplant. You know, I don't think it's cool.
I don't think
it'd be a low quality transplant. A low quality transplant.
They want you to go at the Holiday Inn, eat at the local restaurants, visit the sites there, spend money, learn about the Chinese, and leave loving them. That's what they want.
When we were there, they were polite to us if we looked like we were confused. Otherwise, I felt like a Mexican gardener. They just didn't pay attention to us.
Yeah, really.
You know, that's a part of the background. They just, oh, yeah, who are you? That's fine. In other words, they weren't like, oh, look at that white person. You know, no, they weren't like that at all.
No.
And did you go to the the Forbidden Palace? You know,
it's in Beijing. Yeah,
amazing.
Yeah, it was. Really?
You know, you go, Mike, you go to this place and, you know, it's got a lot of artifacts and it's very dramatic and everything. And you go and you spent the whole day going through it and you get to the back and you go outside and there's another palace. It just keeps going on and on.
And a lot of these palaces are made with not one single nail.
That's right. They all fit together.
And they fit them together. It's extraordinary, their ability to do that, to say the least.
Yeah, I really do. And that I get the number one thing is there's a lot of negative, false PR about China in America. You know, everybody thinks it's like, oh, it's repressive and this and that.
Well, the Communist Chinese Party particularly is getting negative feedback for the last dozen years. And everybody's railing about the Communist Party specifically there.
Yeah. Well, that's a good discussion. If we could have a civil discussion about the Uyghurs. Because the way I look at it, it's 1.5 billion people. You don't fuck around with 1.5 billion people over that territory. If you lose control, it could just all collapse because everything is critical. The food has to move, the energy has to move, and so forth. So they got a Uyghur population of Muslims.
5 to 7 million.
Yeah, 5 to 7 million
out
people.
of 1.5 billion.
I know, but they are.
In the desert.
When you look around the world, you look at the Middle East and you say, what's going on? Well, this Muslim fighting with that Muslim for the Sunnis and the Shiites and the Hutus and the Hezbollah and the ISIS. And they say, no, we don't want that. They actually, so this is what I'm saying about a civil discussion. I know you're going to, if you're taking 5 billion people, 5 million or 1 million at a time, and you're putting them in jails or something, or in education camps. Yeah, there's going to be some rapes. There's going to be some torture. That happens all the time.
It's time for you to be re-educated, comrade.
But I've seen some clips of what they're doing. They're trying to change them to say the Communist Party is the cause of everything, not God, not Islam, not Mohammed. You're a Chinese citizen. You're happy. You believe in the Communist Party. They're trying to indoctrinate them and turn them into working stiffs, like the American education system.
This sounds like Charles Schwab. He says that you'll be happy but own nothing.
Right. So, yeah.
Or I say you'll own nothing but be happy. That's
right. You'll own nothing but be happy. But I mean, the American educational system has been accused of basically the goal was to make compliant consumers. People that can be controlled, but they are. I think consuming is the church of consumption is the most common religion in the United States. Everybody buys Amazon, go everything, restaurants, eating out, smoking cigarettes or whatever you're doing there, buying a scarf. Oh my God, I swear to God, you look just like, you just look just one of those British actors,
That's a scarf and not a mask, right?
Yeah, that's a scarf, but
Are you
that's
still wearing masks in New York?
is that a
Um,
No. Some.
we are, because I don't know if we're wearing scarves, because this is a mask and not a scarf.
oh okay.
Ah.
If you had to take the subway every day, you'd be wearing masks all the time also.
Are
Man,
they?
people just, yeah, people sneeze right out into the open air. I mean, it's just, it's, people talk about China, that people don't put their hands over their mouths.
Well,
Well,
they
at
wear
least
a lot of masks in China too.
Yeah.
they wear a lot of masks, and they have since long before COVID.
But
Yes.
the most remarkable thing that I've started to see in New York a little bit, but mostly when in 2014 in Shanghai and Beijing, girls under 20 wearing shorts, shorts,
Mhm.
And how could this be? This is like a repressed country, and they're letting their daughters and walk around naked from the crotch down, just shorts. Really crazy. And I'm
Women
seeing
want
that in
to
New York too.
women want to attract attention, but not of the wrong people.
Yeah.
So they're out there to be attractive, but then they get these really slimy ones
then
coming
and
around. They don't
that's
know how to get rid of them.
I will make a comment about the debates, which is this. There's two or three things they did not address, which is an international situation which nobody is talking about. I don't mean nobody. You can find material on it.
Mhm.
Is the infertility of the G7 states, of all of the Western world, low fertility, 1.7, 1.4. Forget about it. There's a few exceptions. They're fighting it in Sweden by giving bonuses for, if you have a third child, you get money and this and that. They're trying to create a solution, but it's especially, and I'm aware of it anecdotally. I can name 6 or 7 people who don't have children, and I heard a statistic that if a person is not married by the age of 38, they're not going to get married.
Yeah.
And if a woman that doesn't have a kid by the age of 35, her chances of having a kid is like, and not medically, but likelihood is like, she got a 10% chance she'll ever have a kid. So the society has been molded, or there's some flaw in the society. I don't want overpopulation, but what's happening is there's nobody to hand it over to. There's not enough people to drive the buses and do the tax returns. There's not enough young people, and not right now, but like in 10 years.
They're going to get none of those tax accounts will be going back to driving buses.
Well, I hope
maybe
they don't.
in the near future.
I think most of them were stealing hubcaps, so I don't know if they're going to go back to that. But, where were accountants in relationship to used car dealers, lawyers, Scientologists? Where do they put them? How far down?
Well, there's a real range of bozos. You have the H&R Block tax season sort of people. They might be good, they might not be so good, and they might have that in a regular thing. So they're just like normal people.
Okay, Steve, don't be insulted. I should have included actors. Where were they on that scale?
At the bottom. At the bottom.
I love that line in the Producers, where somebody says there's Aeromustel. They say he made a critical remark about actors, and I think it's the other guy with the blonde hair.
The line was, Ken. He said, we should kill the actors. He said, and the other guy says, you can't kill actors. Actors are human beings. And Zero Mostel says, you ever eat with one?
That's right. That's the line.
And
well, that's interesting.
Having eaten with a lot of actors, I can vouch for the veracity of that.
That's true.
Real slobs, eh?
Okay, guys.
Not that they're slobs. It really comes to when they have to pay the bill.
That's it. That's right. That's it.
Yes.
Oh, wait a minute. I have to go to the bathroom. I'll be back.
Yeah, they're still out the back. All right,
That's
gentlemen.
right.
Been a pleasure for 2.5 hours.
Okay, good night. 2.5 hours. Going viral. It's coming to an end. Great to see you, Mike. And I'll talk to you later. I'll talk to you later.
The Twin Towers of Light. Right.
See you all.
Okay, thank you all. Good night,
Towers.
everybody.
Good
Cheers,
night.
Then end. Bing.